Genetically modified foods are everywhere. Your smoothie, your cornbread, your granola bar, all of these more than likely have ingredients that had their very DNA altered by humans. The World Health Organization defines GMOs as organisms whose DNA has been altered in a non-natural way. Genetically modified seeds have been sowed on U.S. soil for 16 years, making genetic engineering a relatively new science. According to the U.S. Center for Food Safety, in this amount of time, upwards of 75% of all processed foods in United States supermarkets contain ingredients that have been altered at the genetic level. So you could be eating GMOs and not even realize it. Now, despite the fact that this is a relatively new science, there have already been conclusive studies showing the substantial risks posed to the environment and human health by GMOs. So, genetically modified organisms should no longer be mass-produced for consumption in the United States because of the risks they pose. Interfering with the genes of plants could disturb entire ecosystems and can result in, however unintended, drastic environmental consequences. Human-modified plants can become invasive species in delicate natural ecosystems, as you can see in these three examples. First, nutrients are not returned to the soil from GMO crops, meaning that the soil is becoming dry and void of all the nutrients that are essential to the growing process. This causes a cycle of dependency on GMO seeds, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides in order to sustain a single crop. In addition to the soil issues, irrigation used to grow GMOs naturally carries all those chemicals used in growing the crops out into our water sources and into the air, exposing different bacteria, insects, and animals to the toxins. So the effect of all these chemicals used in genetically modified farming are not restricted to the area immediately surrounding the space they're grown, but continuously spreading outward. Third, bees and other insects or animals that take part in pollinating the plants also will carry pesticides, herbicides, and genetically modified DNA through the air into other ecosystems. Bees, birds, butterflies, all are hugely important in the pollination of many food crops, but are extremely endangered by GMO crops due to all the chemicals necessary in the growing of them. Now, someone in support of genetically modified crops might argue that the genetic modifications make growing the crops more efficient, which is true, but efficiency can't be the number one priority when being so has such detrimental effects on the environment, especially since the factors in the environment that it's hurting are so vital in the production of crops and maintaining ecosystems. Equally as worrisome, and some might argue even more so, are the risks posed by genetically modified crops to human health. Several studies conducted by feeding animals these genetically modified foods that were previously thought to be just fine for consumption indicate serious health risks associated with GMOs. These include infertility, immune problems, accelerated aging, faulty insulin regulation, and changes in major organs in the intestinal system. In other words, a whole bunch of problems you're getting just from consuming your everyday foods that contain these genetically modified ingredients. Some might argue that the organisms can be modified to provide more healthy nutrients rather than just supplying all these risks. However, the fact remains that anytime you modify nature, you will, however unintentionally, still take away from the natural benefits and add unnatural risks with the chemical substitutes. Now, with all these risks, you would think that the production of GMOs would be more limited. However, GMOs are much too common and widespread in the United States, much more so than most would think. Those risks posed to the environment and human health are not isolated. They aren't solely affecting a little small town farmland in Kansas or wherever. It really is widespread across the nation. GMOs are as close as being farmed in our own Central Valley and being sold in our local Safeway. It's like this all across the country. GMOs are being worked into diets nationwide from a variety of crops, including some of the most common sources, which are corn, soy, sugar, and even papaya, according to the Cornucopia Institute. Now, to counter this, some might say that unity is good among a nation, which is true, and while unity is good in many instances, a diverse diet is necessary for healthy life, especially among the diverse people groups and different health needs across the nation. Due to all these risks, the United States should, at the very least, reduce the production of GMOs to a far less substantial amount, and by doing so reduce our negative impact on the land, the wildlife, and the generations to come who will be living in the environment we leave for them here.